Okay. Hi guys, good day. Welcome to our second topic that is all about listening. So, as well know, it is an important element in speech and oral communication. So, without further ado, let us go straightly scrutinizing the lessons we have in this topic. Okay, so first we have here the nature of listening, followed by the barriers to good listening, and then the models of listening. So, and of course, the last portion, the right about your thoughts. So, I am to discuss the activities you are to do that will correspond to these three lessons. Okay. Now we go to the objectives. Okay, so as we end this topic, every one of you should be able to do the following. So first, you're expected to discuss the nature and process of listening as well as the barriers to effective listening. Next, you are expected to study and perform the stages of listening and also the strategies recommended to overcome listening barriers in speaking and listening activities. Okay, so third, you are expected also to focus your attention on sounds in the environment to develop your full hearing potentials. You are expected to recognize the importance of the role played by listening in the communication process. Okay, so I hope these are all clear to you guys, and I wish that you would find this topic so essential, ano? So, bigyan nyo sana ito ng pagpapahalaga. So, considering that the topic is about listening, I hope you would give justice to the exact and deep meaning of listening. Huwag yung pasok sa kanang tenga, tas diretsong labas sa kaliwang tenga. May you comprehend the sounds you'll be hearing. What I mean is the information I am to share to you as we go along this topic. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so first and foremost, let us know the nature of listening so that we could easily understand its importance in communication process. So para masagot din natin yung katanungang um, excuse me, bakit ba kailangan pag-aralan ang pakikinig innate na sa atin as tao ang makinig, 'di ba? So, ginagawa naman natin 'yan araw-araw, madali na lang 'yan, mga gano'n. So, well, let's see. Let's familiarize ourselves muna with its definition. Okay, so listening is the cognitive process whereby we attach meanings to auditorial signals. Let's say, for example, in this illustration, the auditorial signals here or the information we hear represents the white waves. And after these white sound waves are translated into nerve impulses by this middle ear and the auditory nerve, they are sent to the brain for interpretation, just like what these screws are doing. Naikot-ikot sila dyan para yung sound waves na na-receive nila ay mapunta doon sa brain, which is dito ay yung light bulb. See, nag-ilaw na yung bulb. Meaning, may idea na siyang na-receive from the sound waves that the ear auditory nerve received. Okay? So, kaya the process of interpretation, the registration of impulses until the turning into meaningful context constitute listening. Okay? So, next. Okay, so as you all know, listening is one of the four fundamental linguistic skills: the speaking, reading, writing, and of course the listening. Okay, so and among them, among the four, listening has been the most neglected one. But changes have been taking place nowadays because the realization of the importance played by listening in human communicative activity has actually led to the conclusion that the teaching of listening is absolutely essential. Yes, we know that listening is a skill that can be learned. Although listening is often ignored, it takes up the greatest amount of time in the study of the four skills of communication. It has to be practiced because we totally do that every day and we literally think we know how to do it. Pero like any other skills, we can learn to do it better and continue to improve our listening skills throughout our lives. That is why we could say that listening is a very important area in communication. Pero madalas we do not listen effectively. Aminin man natin o hindi, 'di ba? Honestly speaking, listening in some ways is more complicated than reading because you cannot actually re-listen as you can read, 'di ba? Unless you have a recording. Tama? So the pace is set for you. You, as the listener, must be determined, and the word meaning must be perceived immediately. Now, as a student, you need to improve your listening skills as this plays a significant role in the communicative process. When you're on the listening end, you have the what do you call this? Responsibility. You have the responsibility to encourage effective communication by giving the speaker the courtesy of your full attention. Kaya I truly hope that as I as I am introducing this topic to you, your attention is on me. Because, let's read this, if the receiver fails to uh, if the receiver fails to listen or to understand the sender of the message, there is actually no interaction. Hence, communication is neither complete nor meaningful. Okay. So, since I do not want this discussion to be meaningless, please listen with comprehension, okay? Now, moving on. Okay, so moving on to the characteristics of an effective listening. So, according to Hibbs et al., effective listening is characterized by being selective, purposive, and attentive. Okay, so first, selective. Alright, so of course, each of us as listeners, we have the option of what to listen to. And we will only pay special attention to what we want to listen to because we believe to its importance and value. Like, we totally disregard the disturbances and just concentrate listening on purpose. Okay? So, and speaking of purpose, effective listening is also purposive. Okay, so ang pakikinig syempre ay nag-require ng specific purpose. Let's say, for example, we listen to the discussion because of our intention to learn. For us to gain information that we need for the examination, to answer the examination. Okay, so for us to be able to pass the course. So that's the aim. Listening has always a purpose. Okay, and lastly, listening is attentive. Alright, so as listeners, we react, but not all people can give their reactions honestly to what they hear if they will not listen attentively. Diba? So since communication is a two-way process that requires a sender and a receiver, it is necessary then that the receiver shows signs of cooperation by means of listening attentively. Okay? So I hope it is clear on your end. Again, effective listening is selective, purposive, and attentive. Okay, so moving on to the two kinds of listening. Okay, so we have here first the emphatic listening. Okay, so empathic listening is the practice of being attentive and responsive to others' input during conversation. Alright, so listening empathically entails making an emotional connection with the other person. So, meaning, we listen to understand the feelings and emotions of others. So, this means that we give uh, attention to the person's sentiments, and in the process, we absorb not only the words of the speaker but also his or her emotions as well, for us to enable to have a better understanding on what he or she feels. Okay, so on the other hand, we also have here the critical listening. Okay, so this refers naman to the kind of listening that evaluates the content of the message. So, and as a critical listener, you are listening to all parts of the message. So, you're analyzing it, you are evaluating what you heard. So the goal here is to evaluate the message and to form opinions and decide for yourself if the information you heard is valid. Okay, so that's the concept of critical listening. Okay, so now as to the stages of listening. So as what I have been reiterating, listening is a very important area of communication. So it begins with the willingness to participate completely in a communicative situation. Pero syempre hindi lang yun. Listening could also play a vital role in general voice improvement to enable one person to correct his or her problems of vocalization. Kasi yung vocal faults na meron ng isang tao, it may eliminated if he or she can hear his or her own voice. At doon mag-start na mangyari yung improvement when he or she becomes consciously aware of its defects. Okay, so do you get it? Kasi when one is able to hear his or her errors in articulation, makakaya na niya tong itama o i-improve. Yun lamang ay kung he or she would accept his or her errors objectively at hindi subjectively. At i-admit niya that he or she will be able to make the desired changes. Okay, so then once this is done, you are prepared to correct your errors more readily and develop a pleasant, suitable speaking voice. Then, with practice in speaking, syempre, you will be able to incorporate the new patterns into your speech with little or no conscious effort. And in connection to that, as you go about the task of making your ear more sensitive to sounds, spend more time each day working to improve the 3 consecutive stages of listening that we are to tackle. Okay, so first we have the attention factor. Okay, so most people have normal hearing. Okay, but ears are not made by God to be always alert. Okay? I mean, alam naman nating lahat yan. We do not listen well sa marami o ibang pagkakataon. We probably have auditory ability but we do not use it always ng tama. Diba? And therefore, we must practice and keep on listening attentively until we discover our maximum hearing potentials. So, if you fall under this category, you need time to listen to sounds about you. Okay, so the sounds around you may be lost because other matters get your attention. Because unless you have some use for them in your thought and reaction pattern, these sounds frequently continue to escape your notice. Marami sa atin as human, as tao, ang nagpe-perform in much the same manner in a conversation na we listen very little to what is said and how it sounds. And with practice of listening attentively, many will begin to hear the less of the less obvious sounds, for they will develop an increased awareness for sounds, and their hearing capacity will become more alert. Right? So to improve your attention factor, you must do a great deal of listening by focusing attention on the tones and noises you hear about you. Okay? Okay, so next we have auditory discrimination. Alright, so this aspect mainly involves listening to sounds and analyzing them on the basis of quality, pitch, loudness, and also the rate of the sound. So initially, um, in this stage, your analysis should cover the different sounds you can hear, but later on, you will isolate them and identify the four factors which was said earlier: the quality, pitch, loudness, and rate. Okay, so this particular training of ears for auditory discrimination may not be that easy, since that elements of sounds may obscure each other. So therefore, you need to be especially cautious about your analysis by improving your ability to distinguish relative degrees of quality, pitch, loudness, and rate. Right? Okay, so lastly, we have listening comprehension. Okay, so we are all familiar with this naman, di ba? So listening comprehension or auditory comprehension refers to the process of translating and interrelating sounds, quality, loudness, and rate into thought symbols. Okay, so in other words, it is the ability of the listener to understand and respond to significant signals and oral messages. Okay, so training your ears for listening comprehension is the highest level of listening, since the two stages, the attention factor and the auditory discrimination, they both contribute to your comprehension of an oral message, diba? Okay, so alright. So those are the three stages of listening, and again, I hope that you are applying to yourselves those three levels as you listen to the lecture, to this lecture video. Okay, so itry natin i-relate yung sitwasyon ninyo dito sa three stages na ito. Okay, so first stage, you should all be alert and your attention should all be on me. Okay, so if that is currently happening, then you pass the attention factor level. Okay, so next stage is yung auditory discrimination. So this talks about the quality, pitch, loudness, and rate, diba? So you should be noticing and analyzing the meaning of the stress and intonation I am applying in what I says. Okay, if I put stress as I pronounce a particular word or phrase, then that means that I am emphasizing it. Okay, so if the intonation I use is high, then you should know that I am uttering a question. Okay, 'di ba dapat alam ninyong i-analyze yung mga ganong bagay na napapakinggan ninyo. Yun yung tinatawag natin na non-verbal communication. Okay? So, and the last stage, you should be listening now with total comprehension. Naiintindihan nyo dapat at ini-internalize nyo dapat yung bawat information na napapakinggan ninyo. Okay? So again, wag nyo lang sanang pakinggan, i-comprehend nyo rin sana. Okay? So is that clear? I hope it is. Alright, so last topic under the nature of listening. Alright, so when you listen to a speech or a discussion, here are some hints that could help you listen effectively. Right, so first, have a purpose for listening, be it for information, inspiration, or pleasure. Okay? Second, look attentive. So, of course, sit properly, sit with ease, and of course, with your eyes focused on the speaker. Tama? So, third, concentrate on what the speaker is saying. Fourth, listen for main points. Fifth, take mental notes of facts and important ideas. Sixth, write down important ideas or facts, especially that of you think you may forget. And lastly, jot down words that you do not understand. Then, you look them up later para may new information, may new words na kayong alam. Okay? Alright, so since that listening is an act in our day-to-day transaction with friends, members of the family, and all others who wish to communicate with us, um, we should train ourselves to become more proficient, because I have this belief that failure to listen will surely create frustration. Kaya we should train ourselves. Practice lang ng practice sa pag-listen. Hindi lang naman yung speaking skills lang natin ang kailangan natin i-improve. Kailangan din natin pahalagahan at bigyan ng attention yung ating listening skills. Kasi it may, yun nga, it may create frustration sa atin ring mga sarili. Okay? Alright, so we are on the second lesson now of this topic, the barriers to good listening. Okay, so listening is more than just being quiet and courteous when someone is speaking. It involves remembering and understanding what was said. And to be an effective listener, you should appreciate the importance of efficient listening and be aware of the fact that such efficiency is sharply reduced if you have developed some barriers to good listening. And as proven by certain studies, poor listening is due to some factors, and you certainly have to remove those barriers from your mental habits if you want to improve your listening skills. Okay, so let us discuss one by one the barriers. Okay, so first we have here the prejudging. Okay, so this commonly happens when you jump to the conclusion that you understand the speaker's meaning before it is fully expressed. Alam mo yun, it is one reason why we sometimes communicate poorly with other people we are closest to, because we think that we are sure that we know what they mean. Like, we don't listen anymore to what they actually say. Kaya naturally, this results in the wrong interpretation of the message. And what else? Okay, so also another way to prejudge a speech is to decide that the topic has little value for you even before you hear the message. So you prematurely reject the speaker's idea as, let's say, boring, for he has nothing valuable to say. So that would be a great mistake, because malay natin, you might pick up useful information pala that would either strengthen or modify your thinking. Tama? So, wag agad tayo mag-judge. Wag agad tayo mag-jump sa conclusion. So, in short, wag tayong mag-alam-alaman muna. Let's listen first, okay? Alright, so next, we have criticizing delivery and physical appearance. Okay. So, a common problem in listening is that we focus on the external aspect. Sometimes lang naman. So, we focus on the external aspect of the speaker, at saka doon lang tayo makikinig if the speaker's appearance and delivery are attractive. May ganito 'di ba? Some of us are put off by personal appearance, yung mga accents, yung kapag may speech defect, or even parang hindi normal or unusual yung vocal mannerism, yung mannerism. So, okay, so that we spend our time mentally criticizing either the physical appearance or speech delivery at the cost of um, uh, uh, not receiving accurately or beneficially the information being sent to us. So again, let us criticize in a healthy way. Wag mag-judge agad, okay? So next, listening too hard. Ayan. Sometimes we listen too hard. We listen to every word as if every word was equally important. Kasi minsan, we often miss the main point na sinasabi ni speaker. We lose the message by concentrating on details. Kaya, ayan, we should know how to analyze din talaga sa ating mga napapakinggan. Okay? Okay, so next, intrusion of the past. Alright, see, so we often bring our past, yung ating feelings, yung ating values, yung ating attitudes into the speech setting. So, truthfully speaking, the memories of the past events can be triggered by a mere word or a reference to a place. As I could observe, many people spend time mentally debating with the speaker and thereby remaining stuck on one idea in the past while the speaker moves ahead to others. And we also remember past feelings from previous encounters with a person, which can also color the way we understand a person today. And let's avoid that. It is quite considerable as toxic na. So, we are living in the present and currently building our future. Kaya, we should stop digging up the past na. Tama na. Char. Iba na pala. Anyway, next tayo, okay? So, drifting thoughts. Ayan. So, our brain is incredibly efficient. Although we talk at a rate of 120 to 150 words daw in a minute, the brain can process 400 to 500 words in a minute talaga. And that could seem to make listening easy. But because we can take in speaker's words and still have plenty of spare time, we are tempted to actually interrupt our listening by thinking about other things. Kumbaga ay, let's chill our brains din habang nakikinig at nag-gain ng information. Importante din yun. Wag kasi posible rin mangyari talaga yung information overload. Tama? Okay, sixth, we have weak extrinsic motivation. Right. So when one is asked only to listen and not told the reason for listening, he has weak external motivation. Kaya technically, the process of listening will become ineffective. So it should always be well remembered that in the absence of motion, an individual is not at all impelled to listen. That's why everyone is required to know that extrinsic motivation is important in turning an individual into a passive listener. Say for example, if I just told you to listen and do not tell you why you should listen. Okay, so one or two possibilities will occur. So first, you will either listen attentively and take notes, or you will either just pretend to listen. And so meaning the degree of extrinsic eh, extrinsic motivation, therefore, be it in a classroom, in social situation, or in any places, it therefore affects the listening behavior. Okay. Okay, so next, personal constraints. Right, so the experiences or circumstances of an individual may actually affect his ability to listen. Say, for example, the speaker's words may remind the listener of something that is part of his concerns. Say, his appointments for the day. Okay, so it will make him wonder and focus his attention on his plans and needs for such a meeting. Mawawala na yung focus niya sa pakikinig, and maaari na rin ang isipin na lang niya ay yung appointment niya for that day. So, ayun, isa na siyang barrier. So, some factors like the listener's values and beliefs may also affect one's ability to listen. when the listeners do not agree with the message of the speaker, deep in their minds, syempre they experience this dissonance, or they simply put a mental debate. So given the opportunity, they may have plans to argue with the speaker. Maaari ding mangyari yon. Tama? So next, we also have environmental constraints. Alright. So of course, the physical atmosphere or the setting or the environment can also be an important factor that can work against effective listening. And in an open setting, for instance, where distraction is so great, so the attention which is to be given by the listeners to the speaker is drawn away. Tulad na lang ng seats that are uncomfortable, foul odor of the people seated near you, the extreme heatness or coldness in the place. So those are the environmental obstacles for effective listening. So when the atmosphere or the setting where the communication takes place is favorable to everyone, and the topic is good, and the speaker is eloquent, so everybody is induced to listen. Thus, effective listening occurs, right? So, lastly, poor timing. Yes, okay. So speech must be presented at a right time, and in the right place, syempre. This idea is important for the speakers as well as to the listeners. Kasi if the speaker presents an argument about, let's say, money when you have just gone to the Bureau of Internal Revenue, for example lang, and paid for your tax, it would be boring for you to listen to a topic about tax collection or revenue. So your experience about something unfavorable at the moment will make you uh, give all your ears and attention to money matters and will irritate you. This kind of ineffective listening may have a disastrous effect on listeners, resulting to disappointment on the speaker's part and the failure to convey his or her message. Okay? Okay, so next, let's know naman how to overcome such barriers to good listening. Okay? So, to overcome the barriers to good listening, here are some specific suggestions for improving your listening skills. Right, so first we have adapt to the speaker's delivery. Okay, so to be a good listener, you have to focus on the speaker's message, not on the style of delivery, nor on his or her appearance. Okay? And instead na i-criticize mo ang speaker or his or her looks, you may need to be sympathetic and try harder to concentrate on the message. Remember that a good listener focuses on the message and not on the messenger. Okay? So next, avoid jumping to conclusions. Right, so ayan. So, give the speaker time to develop and support his or her main point before you agree or disagree or think that if the message has any value or kung wala ba. Okay? Right, so next, keep your focus. Okay. Okay. So one way to stay focused is to determine what your listening purpose is. So this can help you develop an appropriate listening strategy. So if you are listening for pleasure, you need not uh, to take down notes, but when you listen critically, you need to know what the facts are and how they relate to the speaker's arguments and conclusions. So, ayun, kailangan mo lang alamin yung purpose kung bakit ka nakikinig. So, to keep your focus, right? So, next, avoid overreacting emotionally to a message. Mm-hmm. Alright, so words that connote negative opinions about people's ethnic origin, nationality, religious views, and about their past it can trigger strong emotions kasi kaya you must not allow yourself to be distracted by your own emotions because heightened emotions can actually decrease your listening comprehension, right? So next, summarize mentally what the speaker has said. Right. So another powerful listening strategy is summarizing mentally every few minutes what the speaker has said. Okay. Evidence suggests that your ears listen to words faster than the speaker can speak them. So therefore, your mind may wander. Since the speed with which you think is far greater than the pace of most speakers' delivery, you can mentally summarize several minutes content in just a few seconds. And this mental activity can help keep you alert and follow the speaker's flow of ideas. Mas nakakatulong ito para ma-comprehend mo easily yung iyong napapakinggang information. Right? So next ay listen with eyes and ears. Okay. So listen with your eyes as well as your ears. So even though you have been cautioned against letting a speaker's appearance and style of delivery distract you, don't totally ignore a speaker's body language. Tama? His or her facial expression, his or her posture and gestures can reinforce the intensity of his or her emotion. Kaya a good view of a speaker can increase your level of attention and improve your understanding or comprehension din. So, isang malaking tulong din ang um, pagtingin or ang pagbigay attention sa kanyang body language. Alright, so that ends our second lesson under the topic of listening. Okay, so the last lesson under the topic of listening is the models of listening. Alright, so one way to improve our own listening skills is to understand what the listening process is all about. So ito, nakalagay nga dito sa slide. Listening is a combination of what we hear, what we understand, and what we remember. So, say for instance, in a classroom situation, as the teacher speaks, sound waves are created that become electrical energy, which is passed on to your brain. So, your inability to listen because of one or more factors, let's say, dinadaldal ka ng katabi mo, prevent ka nun from hearing the words being spoken. It disables you from decoding the teacher's message. Oo nga, naririnig mo yung sound waves, pero the interpretation of the meaning of the sound waves got interrupted dahil yung attention mo ay nasa katabi mo. You cannot recall anything your teacher said because you were not actually listening. Kaya, when we listen, we hear the words and try to make sense out of what we hear. At it involves, syempre, a certain processes. Okay? And I have here two listening models that will help you improve your listening skills and might strengthen your ability to think critically and evaluate what you hear. Right? Okay, so first one, we have here Brook's listening model. So, as to this model, the act of listening comprises three stages: the hearing, identifying and recognizing, and lastly is the auditing. Okay, so hearing, the orange box here. So it refers to the process by which speech sounds in the form of sound waves are received by the ear. So then the mustard box here, the identifying and recognizing, is one in which patterns and familiar relationships are recognized and assimilated. So through auditory analysis, mental reorganization and association, the sound and the sound sequences are then recognized as words. Okay? So, and the third step in the green box is the audio. Right. So, ito na yung translation ng words into meaning. So, basically, it involves one or more avenues of thought indexing, comparing, noting sequence, forming sensory impressions, and appreciating. Right. So next we also have Blaine Goss listening model. So just like the first model, Goss model also comprised three stages, right? So first is the signal processing. Right, so this stage is the act of transmitting the message to the listener. So nagkakaroon lang ng problema dito kapag the speech you are listening to is unclear or poorly spoken by the speaker, or the language he or she is using is unfamiliar to you. Okay? So second is the literal processing. Alright, so uh, this stage takes the words in the message into assessing their probable meaning. So, this is the first stage of meaning assessment, wherein it focuses on the denotative meaning of words used, right? So, literal, kaya literal. Okay, so lastly, we have the reflective processing. Okay, so this listening stage is the evaluation. Okay, so it basically goes beyond the literal stage to determine what else may be contained in the message. For instance, ay yung inferences, motibo, and yung credibility ng speaker. Okay? Okay, so summing it up, okay, effective listening is a skill to be developed to be truly effective in understanding others. Alright, so since we spend most of our time listening each other and each day, it is suggested that we practice listening to improve our listening skills. Okay, so kaya sabi ko kanina, hindi lang speaking skills yung kailangan nating pahalagahan at bigyang attention para ma-improve. Ganun din yung ating listening skills, okay? And as a listener, you need to realize that listening is hard work. Okay, so for us to effectively listen, it requires concentration, focus, and of course, control of the listening environment. And ayan, to be truly effective in understanding others, it may be helpful to look into the methods suggested of overcoming barriers to good listening. Okay. Dahil even the best message is useless if it goes unreceived or if it is misunderstood. Kaya we need to improve our skills. It can actually be acquired and developed by practicing these methods. Okay, so that ends our second topic, which is listening. So, thank you and keep hydrated and stay safe. So, balik na kayo sa ating group chat para sa ating synchronous class. Okay, thank you.